The film opens with Gwen inside a lonely telephone booth, for years after the terrifying events with the grabber. She's using her psychic gift to reach out to a spirit from beyond. Just as she's about to uncover something meaningful about her recent dream, the line abruptly cuts. Frightened, she hurries back inside, shaken to the core. Cut to North Denver, 1982. A crowd of students gathers to watch Finney lay into another boy during a fight. Gwen rushes in to break it up, but Finney won't stop. Later, she begs her brother to quit fighting the kids who taunt him about what happened with the grabber. But Finney refuses, saying that's the only way he knows how to handle the pain. He even told Gwen exactly the same thing Robin told him after saving his ass.
You're gonna have to stand up for yourself one of these days.
Moments later, Robin's brother, Ernesto, drives by and invites them to an event that evening. Gwen happily accepts, flashing a smile that makes it clear she has feelings for him. That night, Finney steps outside to get some air. But the silence brings back haunting memories of the grabber. To cope, he turns to drugs, desperate to quiet the nightmares. The hallucinations hit him hard. For a split second, he even sees the grabber standing before him. But it's all in his mind. Elsewhere, a group of kids on vacation at Alpine Lake are laughing and playing, until an armed man suddenly emerges, chasing one of them through the snow. The chase ends brutally, with the boy murdered in cold blood. After the killing, the man carves a message beneath the ice, one meant for Gwen. Gwen jolts awake from another nightmare, confused about what the spirits are trying to show her this time. Suddenly, a phone rings somewhere nearby. She's about to answer it when she realizes the sound isn't coming from inside the house. Finn snaps her out of her trance, leading her back inside as she explains her horrific dream. Finn dismisses it, thinking it's nothing serious. The next day at school, Gwen becomes a target of ridicule. Some girls mock her, calling her a witch. Ernesto steps in, lightening her mood. He gives her movie tickets for their date and offers her spiritual trinkets he says might help her see the unseen, something that makes Gwen even more drawn to him. Later that afternoon, Finney stops at a store. As he exits, the payphone outside starts ringing. He answers, says he can't help, and hangs up. What he doesn't know is that the phone hasn't worked in years. It shouldn't have rung at all. That night, children gather for a bonfire after playing in the snow. One boy steps away to relieve himself, and never returns. The grabber ambushes him, killing him with an axe and later burning his body. The boy's charred spirit rises from beneath the frozen lake and leaves another cryptic message for Gwen. She wakes up gasping for breath, the ringing of a phone echoing again. Determined to find the source, she goes outside, but instead of a phone, she finds the scorched corpse of the boy lying before her. Terrified, she sneaks into the grabber's abandoned house, hoping to connect with the dead through the old phone. When she answers, she hears the voice of one of the victims, Hope Andler. He recounts his murder at Alpine Lake and warns that the grabber still lives, hiding deep within the mountains. Before he can say more, the call abruptly cuts. Gwen turns and freezes. Standing before her is the grabber's deceased brother. The door creaks open behind them, footsteps echoing down the stairs. The phone suddenly starts ringing violently, then the scene shifts. Gwen is now back with Finney, who explains that she'd been sleepwalking. Still disoriented, she tries to make sense of what just happened. She tells Finn that she spoke to their mother through the phone. Again, he brushes it off, refusing to believe. As they prepare to leave, Finn notices strange symbols etched into the wall. Gwen points out that parts of her dreams are now happening in real life. She insists they must go to the youth camp she saw in her vision, but Finn refuses to revisit anything tied to the grabber. Their father joins the conversation and reveals that their mother once worked at that very camp before he met her. Gwen wants to explain her dream, but Finn stops her. Eventually, Finn agrees to take a job there. After packing up, they set out for the camp. But as they drive, a thick fog blankets the road, forcing Ernesto to pull over so Finn can step out and check the path ahead. They eventually reach a small, isolated settlement. A man welcomes them and explains that the camp has been cancelled due to the harsh weather. Only the three of them made it this far. As they follow him inside, Finn spots a telephone booth nearby. The sight alone sends chills down his spine. Inside, the man assigns them their sleeping quarters. Ernesto, not being a registered counselor, is told to stay at another cabin across the road. That night, Gwen suffers another nightmare. This time, she sees herself standing on the frozen lake surrounded by the dead children. Meanwhile, Finn steps out for a smoke and hears a phone ringing across the road. He approaches the booth, but the lights go out before he can reach it. At the same moment, Gwen wakes up, startled. The phone begins ringing again. Finn answers and pleads with the spirits, saying he can't help them. The lights flicker and die once more. Back in her cabin, Gwen hears movement under her bed. She leans down and finds a corpse staring back at her. Meanwhile, Finn realizes it's the grabber's voice on the line. Before he can react, the booth locks itself. Panic sets in. Gwen is attacked by the spirits of the dead boys, who close in on her in anger, while the grabber tells Finn that this time, there's no escape. Gwen is on the verge of losing her sanity when suddenly, the booth unlocks. Finn rushes to her, pulling her from the psychic trance and comforting her, hiding his own fear to keep her calm. They leave their cabin and take shelter in Ernesto's, believing it's safer there. Gwen confides in Ernesto about her nightmare, and he offers to let her sleep beside him for comfort. Morning finally arrives, bringing brief relief. But tension brews again when Finn realizes the wounds Gwen sustained in her dream are real. Later, during breakfast, the camp organizer Armando introduces them to his niece, Mustang, a girl who immediately catches Finn's eye. Armando explains that only 4 staff members remain at Alpine Lake and that they'll all be leaving in 2 days. Curious, he asks why they came, since neither of them had ever attended the camp before. Gwen explains that their late mother somehow guided them there and even shows him her picture. Armando freezes. He remembers her clearly, a woman he once knew well and calls a true light. He tells them to meet him outside after the meal. Finn stops him to ask about the old payphone near the cabin, only to learn that it's been broken for years. Finn explains his experience the night before, but before anyone can react, the payphone suddenly rings again. Finn decides to investigate while the others call for help. He steels himself, ready for anything the grabber might say, but when he picks up, it's one of the dead boys on the other end. As Finn listens, the spirits of the murdered children appear right before him, pounding on the glass in desperation, begging him to help them. Back home, Terrence sat glued to the television, watching reports about the severe storm sweeping through Alpine Lake. Fearful for his children's safety, he grabbed the phone and tried to reach them. Night had already fallen over the camp. Meanwhile, Gwen was fast asleep, only to find herself trapped in another haunting dream. This time, she saw her mother standing inside a familiar telephone booth. One of the dead children appeared and whispered that she wasn't supposed to be there before sprinting off. Desperate for answers, Gwen chased after him. One by one, other ghostly children appeared, leading her deeper through the mist until she finally arrived at the very spot where the grabber had slaughtered them all. Startled awake, Gwen saw a mysterious woman in white standing at her doorway. Almost instantly, the old phone outside began ringing again. Compelled by an unseen force, she followed one of the spirit boys into the woods. Back inside, Finn and Ernesto debated whether to answer the call. Ernesto eventually decided to check on Gwen, while Finn ventured out alone toward the booth. It became clear, the grabber was manipulating them, separating each of them to face their own demons. Finn stepped inside the booth, shut the door behind him, and declared that he wasn't afraid. On the line, the grabber's sinister voice mocked him, saying he could never truly escape and that their game was far from over. Inside the cabin, Gwen wandered into the dining room, still being lured by the child's ghost. Ernesto, realizing she was gone, woke the other 4 remaining camp staff members and told them Gwen had vanished. Elsewhere, Gwen's pursuit led her into a dark storage room. The moment she entered, the air turned violent, objects rattling, shadows twisting. And then he appeared, the grabber. Gwen struggled fiercely, but his strength was overwhelming. Her screams echoed through the camp, drawing the others to her location. When they burst in, they saw Gwen being hurled violently through the air, as if an invisible force was toying with her. Finn sprinted toward the chaos as the grabber tried to shove her into a burning furnace. Ernesto held onto her desperately while utensils and objects began flying at everyone in the room. When Finn arrived, the grabber suddenly released her, as if that had been his plan all along. In the aftermath, shaken and terrified, they all sought refuge at a nearby church. There, Armando tried to piece everything together. Gwen showed him the strange markings the dead boys had left for her. It was then that Armando realized who they truly were. Finn and Gwen were the same siblings who had once defeated the grabber years ago. Armando opened an old photo album filled with pictures of past camp visitors. Finn's eyes widened as he recognized one of the faces. The grabber wasn't just a random killer, he had once been one of the youths who attended this very camp. Armando remembered his name, Wild Bill Highcock, WH. That was the name the ghostly children had been etching into the ice all along. Gwen deduced that this was where it all began, the site of the grabber's first murders. When Finn killed him years ago, his vengeful spirit had returned to this place, feeding off the restless souls of his victims. Gwen insisted that the only way to end the curse was to locate the children's remains and lay them to rest. Armando agreed, promising they would begin the search at dawn. Later that night, Armando sat alone in his office, listening to the storm howl outside. A faint sound drew his attention, followed by a sudden blackout. When he turned on his flashlight, he froze. The grabber's bloody face was drawn across the window. At sunrise, they all ventured into the forest to search the frozen lake. Hours passed as they swept through the area, but daylight faded fast. Back in the cabin that night, Gwen fell into another nightmare. But this one was different. Her mother was trapped in it too. Hope startled awake, sensing something was wrong. As Gwen stirred, Ernesto gently pushed her back down to rest. But what he didn't know was that her spirit had already left her body, slipping into Hope's reality. In that realm, Gwen watched her mother leaving the room, sheets in hand. Following her, Gwen realized her mother was heading straight to the grabber's house. Through the window, Gwen saw the man forcing a terrified child into his van. Hope tried to stop him, but the grabber grabbed her instead, shoving her violently inside. Moments later, he returned outside, his eyes burning with rage as he locked eyes with Gwen. He invited her, almost mockingly, to come save her mother. Without hesitation, Gwen followed him into the darkness. The door slammed shut behind them. Inside, she found herself face to face with 2 generations of the grabber, and the psychics who could see them. Their journey ended at a place that froze Gwen's blood, the exact spot where she had been killed years ago. The truth hit her hard. Everyone had believed she'd taken her own life, but the grabber had murdered her and staged it to look that way. Gwen watched helplessly as her father's grief played out before her eyes. The moment he found her body, the devastation etched on his face. The grabber appeared again, axe in hand, and gave her a head start before hunting her down like prey. She fled into his basement, where the old telephone began ringing loudly. On the line, her mother's voice urged her to hide. Gwen ducked behind a wall, but the grabber's footsteps drew closer, his belt scraping, his axe gleaming. She ran, cornered at last, as he swung the weapon down. The blow connected, and the injuries appeared on her real body back in the cabin. Ernesto shook her, begging her to wake up, but she was locked deep in her psychic trance. Then, a miracle. The freezer door creaked open, and one of the dead boys guided her out. Suddenly, she stood upon a frozen lake. Armando was there, desperately melting the ice to recover the boy's remains, and he succeeded. As Gwen fought to regain control, she heard the phone outside ringing again. The grabber's voice came through, taunting her while, in the physical world, he appeared beside Armando, digging into the ice for a darker purpose. By the time Gwen realized his plan, it was too late. The grabber plunged Armando into the icy water, holding him down with his boot. Then, turning his attention back to Gwen, he smashed the booth's glass and wrapped the phone cord around her throat, strangling her. The wire tore into her skin until she collapsed. On the other side, her friends screamed for her to fight back. And then she did. In a blinding burst of psychic energy, Gwen exploded the entire booth. Rising from the wreckage, she marched toward the grabber, fury in her eyes. She headbutted him, unleashed her powers, and melted him into nothingness before waking up with a gasp. The group rushed to the lake and pulled Armando out, barely alive but breathing. Relief washed over everyone. Moments later, headlights cut through the snow. Terrence had arrived with a truck to clear the path and bring his children home. Finn was overjoyed, ready to leave it all behind. But Gwen refused. Their work wasn't done yet. She revealed the final truth, that their mother hadn't taken her own life. The grabber had killed her and made it look like suicide. Terrence, hearing his daughter describe the exact emotions he'd felt that day, finally believed her. The following morning, the group continued searching the lake, knowing the grabber's power could only be destroyed once the lost children were found. Hours passed with no success. As fatigue set in, Gwen slipped into another trance. She could see herself lying motionless as the others tried to wake her. Then came the horror, the grabber skating toward them across the ice. Kenneth was the first to fall, killed instantly. Beneath the surface, Gwen's spirit worked frantically, pushing the frozen corpses of the children upward toward safety. On the ice, the grabber cornered Finn, just like the night of his original death. Terrence dove in to help while Finn fought with all his strength. Recovering one boy's body weakened the grabber, giving Finn just enough strength to shove him back. But the killer wasn't finished. As he lunged again, 2 other spirits rose from beneath the lake, seizing him. Moments later, the 3 dead boys appeared before him, and Gwen delivered the final blow, burying an axe into his skull. Finn ripped off the grabber's mask and smashed his face into the ice until it shattered completely. Gwen severed his leg so he couldn't escape, and together, they tossed his mangled body into the lake. The children's spirits dragged him down, deeper and deeper, until the water swallowed him whole. For the first time, the siblings stood together in peace, knowing it was finally over. Gwen's spirit returned to her body, and she awoke to Armando's face. Overcome with relief, she kissed him. As they prepared to leave Alpine Lake, the phone rang one last time. Gwen hesitated, then picked it up. On the other end was Hope Andler, and her mother's voice. The line went silent, and the screen faded to black. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.